Shit We've Read is a proud member of Bilo Network, a network of geeky podcasts.
Please visit shitwe'veread.com to support the show.
Now let's talk about some books.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away. Okay, that's enough of that. I don't want to get sued. Hello, internet bookworms, and welcome to the Season 2 premiere of Shit We've Read, a sci-fi fantasy book podcast now hosted by three geeky friends. My name is Jason Rico, and I will be one of your hosts for this episode, where we will be discussing Star Wars Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule. Joining me on this episode, as always, is my co-host, Laura Benson. May the 4th be with you, Laura.
May the 4th be with you. Happy Star Wars Day.
Happy Star Wars Day. How's it going?
Pretty good.
We took a little bit of break, but I'm glad to finally be back talking about books again.
Woo woo.
And now, joining us also on this episode is our new co-host, Bella Romero. Hey, Bella.
Hey, guys. It's official. This is a real
Yeah.
episode.
It is, yes. We've already introduced you in our mini-sode where we got
Yes.
to meet you, but now this is the first official full-length episode where we're actually talking about a book, although you've been on the podcast before, so this is old news to you already.
Yeah, I've been on episodes before, but this really is like, it's a new ball game being a co-host. I don't get to just, fuck up and run away. Like, I kind of have to keep doing a good job. So
Pressure.
probably shouldn't swear as much either. So I'll work on that,
Oh,
Rico.
I
But
I don't think
fuck
you
it.
care.
Who cares?
oh, okay,
Whatever.
great. Yeah. Hey, if you're telling me I can use the F word a lot, I'm ready to do it. This is Star Wars.
I think all podcast apps automatically put us as an explicit because we have shit in our name. Whether we cuss or have explicit content, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. So fuck it, let's go into it, Just-
Yeah.
So we really have to like lean into it then.
Hell
is
yeah.
what
Might
you're
as
telling
well.
me. Yeah.
Might as well.
It's part of the brand. Our brand identity. Profanity. Profane book reading for sci-fi and fantasy nerds.
All right, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about a Star Wars book today. Now, why Star Wars book, you ask? Great question. A few different reasons. First and foremost, if you've listened to the show before, you've probably noticed that I think pretty much on almost every episode at some point, we've mentioned Star Wars.
Yep.
Sometimes organically, sometimes not. We're just geeks and it always comes up. So why not talk about Star Wars? Secondly, this episode is releasing on May 4th, which if you're a Star Wars fan is May the 4th, as in May the Force be with you. So honestly, it was proclaimed by the Force itself that we needed to talk about Star Wars.
Yeah. The Force decided for us.
Exactly. However, before we talk about the book, as always, we like to discuss the other shit we're reading. Laura, what are you currently reading?
I actually just started The Darkness Outside Us by Elliot Schrafer? Elliot Schrafer? I don't know how to say the last name. It's a sci-fi kind of space story. It's LGBTQ. It's about two young adults, I guess. It's really cute so far. I was under the assumption it's a romance, but it's also leaning like really good, like a good amount into the actual sci-fi story part also, which is definitely more my thing. So it kind of reminds me a little bit of Project Hail Mary.
Really? Okay.
And like the wittiness of the main character and like his inner monologue. It's different because it's I think he's 17, 18 years old. I think I want to say around there. So it's not quite the same, but I get the kind of like the same vibes from it. So I'm very much enjoying it. I'm looking forward to getting to the end because there's definitely some weird stuff going on.
Nice.
So
Just out of curiosity, because you mentioned Project Hail Mary. Bella, have you read Project Hail Mary yet?
I have not, no.
Oh, you have to. It's so good.
it's my favorite.
It's so
I
good.
feel like every time we get together, my list of books to read just gets like 10 times thicker. So I'll just add that to the
That's why we're
pile
here.
of
That's
shit
why
I
we're
need to
here.
read.
I would say
Yeah.
put that one like towards the top of your
Yeah,
list. Like
yeah.
it's so
Wow.
good.
Yeah, if I can use a
got
Disney Fast Pass for that book, please put it at the top of your list.
yeah. I even got my husband to listen to the audiobook, and he's not a reader or anything, but he loved it. And he got so excited when he found out that they are working on making it into a movie.
Oh, well that to me like also interests me because I try to read the books before they become movies. So okay, that gives me some incentive to put it at the top of the pile.
I'm so glad you're on
So-
the right side of that argument, because Laura is not on the right side of that argument.
I like to judge a movie without the source material because sometimes they gotta make changes to it to make it work. So I try to see if the movie is good on its own, and then I like to read the source material and then decide from there which one I liked most. It still is usually the book.
At least you recognize that, so that's okay. Bella, what have you been reading recently?
Well, I feel like I've been reading a lot lately. Mostly, prepping for this podcast. So Malice and Misrule by Heather Walter is our next episode. And so I've been reading those and they are very good so far. So already recommending those to our listeners. I've also been this is my shame. I love Bridgerton. I'm not gonna lie. Fell in love with the series, started to read the books, love those more. And I already listened to the first 6, like when the first season came out in 2020. And now I'm rereading or re-listening to them. I listen to them on audiobook because they're like such a good, like before bed, like you don't really miss much. There's nothing substantive. Like it really is just really good romantic fluff. And love it. So I fall asleep to it. So I already went through like my favorite ones. There's ones I don't like. I feel like that's more of an after dark conversation. But I've been re-listening to them, and then I finally read the 7th and 8th books for Hyacinth and Gregory Bridgerton. So yeah, that's what I've been working on. I'm just trying to find other romance books for after dark. I remembered how much I love Bridgerton, so I'm really just like, okay, what are we doing? Let me start forming an opinion and reading some more books. So I've been doing a lot of research lately, I feel like, on books. Like really collecting like a list of things to read and borrow, and gonna get my teacher discount at Barnes and Noble soon, hopefully. So
Hey.
yeah, it's happening. So really just kind of leaning into the romance genre right now. It's the right vibe for the weird cold weather we've been having.
That's very true.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Sweet. Really quickly, just sharing what I've been reading recently. The last series I read was the Bobaverse series by Dennis E. Taylor. That series is so freaking good. Laura, you would love it.
I know.
It's very in the vein of The Martian, Project Hail Mary, like a Ready Player One. Not so much, not quite that far, but it's great. The premise is a guy pays to get his brain put on ice when he dies, and then he wakes up as an artificial intelligence in the future as part of the ships that are designed to go out into space, that are all essentially clones. So they're all AI versions of him that duplicate and move on, and just this whole wacky kind of society based on just one person. And I don't want to say anything more than that, but it's really good. It's super fun. It's super smart. 2 different people recommended it to me totally independently, and they were both on the money with it. So thank you both to Matt and Kyle. And yeah.
Yeah, it's been on my list for a while.
I'm going to use the Disney Fast Pass on you too, and I'll make you move that up.
Okay.
Just like you made me read Annihilation, I'm going to make you read this one.
I'm kind of on a book ban right now.
Okay, well, whenever that's over.
I need to get through a lot of these books.
All right, fine, whatever.
But I
Just move
will
on.
put it at the top for when
Thank
I
you.
can buy more.
Thank you. You can keep skipping. I just want it to be at the top of your list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay, thanks. All right, let's move on to the book we're actually here to talk about, which, as I mentioned, is Star Wars: Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule. It is the first book in the new High Republic era of the Disney Star Wars canon, which I will explain a little bit more about what that is. However, let's just kind of get into the synopsis of what this book is about. Bella, would you like to read the synopsis for us?
Absolutely. Long before the First Order, before the Empire, before the Clone Wars, Jedi lit the way for the galaxy and the High Republic. It is a golden age. Intrepid hyperspace scouts expand the reach of the Republic to the farthest stars. Worlds flourish under the benevolent leadership of the Senate, and peace reigns, enforced by the wisdom and strength of the renowned order of Force users known as the Jedi. But even the brightest light can cast a shadow, and some storms defy any preparation. When a shocking catastrophe in hyperspace tears a ship to pieces, the flurry of shrapnel emerging from the disaster threatens an entire system. Even as the Jedi battle valiantly against calamity, something truly deadly grows beyond the boundary of the Republic. A threat hides in the darkness, far from the light of the age, and harbors a secret that could strike fear into even a Jedi's heart. Bum, bum, bum.
Thank you for that. As always, let's get into non-spoiler first impressions of the book. Actually, let me back up a little bit. I should say this is both your first Star Wars book, correct?
No, but
Oh,
yes.
no. But okay.
Explain.
What?
So
Please.
in preparation for this episode, I realized that I have read Star Wars books before, but this is kind of a new beast. The books that I read are no longer canon. Like, I read the ones that were published in like the late 80s, 90s, 2000s that are no longer they've been retconned by the movies, specifically 7, 8, 9. Thanks, JJ. So, and I don't remember them very well. So I read them in maybe elementary school, junior high. So I don't even remember the names. I tried to look up which ones I had read. I couldn't even find the one because I don't remember the title. I just remember it had to do with Leia and this guy that liked her, but it wasn't Han Solo. I don't remember. It was sort of like a what if series within Star Wars. So that was really interesting. Like, she becomes a Sith in that.
Interesting.
Don't remember the books. I tried really hard to find them, you guys. And I also read the novel accompaniments for episode 1, which were these journals for Anakin and Padme, which were really interesting. They were scholastic books, like they were meant for kids. I loved them. Like, I found them in the library and just like devoured them because they were familiar characters and kept it pretty simple. And it was sort of like the moments leading into episode 1. So you already had the context for what was happening if you'd watched the movie at that point. So, and I'd also read the novelization of episodes 4, 5, and 6. So yeah, I have read Star Wars books, was the moral of the story, but like not really the same as this that we're going to discuss. This felt very different.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you're a noobish.
Yeah. It's like I've dipped my toe in the water. I wouldn't say I read Star Wars books, but I have read them.
Okay. What about you, Laura? This is your first one?
Yeah. Well, not novels. The Star Wars novels I haven't read before. I have read some of the graphic novels here and there.
Right.
But obviously those aren't as in depth as a novel. So yeah, this was the first one that I've read.
Okay. So knowing that, and again, before you give your first impressions, I'm going to ask a question. Did this book feel like a Star Wars book? Whatever that means to you.
Yes.
Laura?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yes. Let's say yes.
Okay. All right. So then what are your first impressions?
I did not really enjoy it overall.
All right.
I felt like at least the first half was just exposition. Literally, like constantly every page some kind of exposition, and I kept thinking maybe this detail is important later. Maybe I need to know this for later, and then I don't need to know it. And so I just kind of started getting bored, and I didn't know what was going to happen, and I was like, what's going on? Where's the story going? And then I didn't know if I was going to finish the book in time, so I checked out the audiobook from the library. And I was like, man, I should have just been listening to the audiobook the whole time. Because the audiobook made it so much more exciting because the narrator was amazing and there's like Star Wars sound effects and like that made it a lot better. It made a lot of the characters way more interesting to me. But I don't know, maybe I went into it expecting something different. But I don't know what I was expecting.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Bella. Your face says you have a lot to say. So
I would like to copy and paste all of what Laura said. I felt very similar where I did not like reading the book. I did prefer the audiobook because I just had a feeling that this was something I was supposed to listen to. Like it would kind of it would sound more like a Star Wars movie or something being read to me, and I was right. And the sound effects were great. I think that really helped with some of the the droid beeped twice. Like, okay, like what does that sound like? Like we all know R2 and C3PO beep very differently. And like that's part of what makes Star Wars so great to me is some of that audio engineering that is that at the time was so revolutionary, pioneering actually. And so I missed that. I love Star Wars visually, I realized in reading this book, because I did not like the exposition, the level of exposition that there was. I'm all about exposition, don't get me wrong, because it helps you understand the book. But I felt like I was being explained every little thing about these characters that you can just show in a movie or a TV show. Like it made it 3 times longer to the point where I was on like chapter 18 and was like, I'm not even halfway through this book and it's chapter 18 because they were short chapters, but there was also a lot going on. I think that the different viewpoints, the number of characters, it was really hard. And like all of the names are so different. All of these characters are so unique. It was really hard to keep track of what was going on with who, which made me realize why I like the movies, because there's a visual. Like I could not tell you the alien race of every Jedi, but I could identify them so quickly watching the movie, be like, oh yeah, they're in this scene in this movie and this is what happens, blah, 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 blah. So I had a really hard time sticking with this. It was really hard to read. I almost fell asleep because I was like so many details, so much exposition. Where am I? Like, and then listening to the audiobook, I was having an extra hard time because I like start tuning it out at some point because I was sewing a dress at the same time because I needed to do that. And I was like, wait, what just happened? Someone's jumping out of a ship.
I do that
what
too.
What the heck? It was like, I just felt like there was so much going on that this book made it really hard to pay attention to every little thing, but then also know what was important. So I'm with Laura on that one. I was not a huge fan.
all right.
I'm a big Star Wars nerd. You know me. I mean, I love Star Wars, but I have often said that I don't love their novelizations. And this is a big reason why, because I just don't think it translates very well in book form. I think it's really hard when they try to make like the space opera fit in a book. Versus like those one-off stories that they do about, the Queen's Tale or like the journals that I read, like one-off characters about what they're experiencing, totally manageable, totally digestible. But this was not, in my opinion. Like I was very confused most of the time. And I don't have the background of like what the High Republic is. Like I did kind of come into it and I was happy. I'm glad that I came into it this way without that background and context. So I think that was really interesting. So for our listeners who are not Star Wars fans or who are like me and like the movies exclusively, I
Well,
feel
I'm
you.
really glad you say that. I'm really glad actually said that you came in without any background because I have some background I want to share with everybody
Ooh,
before I
okay.
give my first impressions because I think it's important to know where this book sits in the Star Wars canon. So, the High Republic itself is a multimedia project consisting of various stories from the Star Wars franchise set during the High Republic sub era of the Age of Republic, roughly 200 years before the Star Wars films and 800 years after the fall of the Old Republic. So, if you're not a big Star Wars fan, that a lot of that probably is not going to make any sense to you. But basically, Disney, they had the rights to Star Wars. They decided we want to put out new novels in a uncharted area of the timeline. And so this is where they decided to be. The series is divided into 3 phases. The first is Light of the Jedi, which will run up until the end of this year. And then the second phase, Quest of the Jedi, starting at the end of this year. And then the third phase, Trials of the Jedi, coming at a later date. This project was first teased in April of 2019 as Project Luminous, and then officially started in September 2018 with invitations to Star Wars authors Claudia Gray, Justina Ireland, Daniel Jose Older, Kevin Scott, and Charles Soule to Skywalker Ranch. And Lucasfilm offered them all a blank slate to determine the project. So this entire project was really created from the minds of these authors, brand new. So there is no real backstory or homework you need to know to get into these books. It's kind of a fresh slate, other than knowing that it exists in Star Wars. There's going to be lightsabers and blasters and droids and space, and that's really all you need to know. That said, it is a really tall order to introduce a brand new era with a bunch of characters that people do not know. So my feelings of the book entirely mirror both of yours, that it was difficult to get into because everything was brand new. Overall, for me, this book had way too many perspectives, and it made it really hard to care about any of the characters because you're introduced to brand new Jedi Masters and their Padawans, and you're introduced to a brand new villain. It's not even like a brand new Sith Lord; it's a brand new type of villain and brand new planets, and just like it's just so much to consume. Now, I read a lot of Star Wars novels, so I have some practice dealing with this. So I don't think I hated it probably as much as both of you, but it was a lot to get through. Also, I will say I've already started the next book in the series, and it is way better already. Because
why didn't we read that
well,
one?
because you have to read the first one. No, it's way better. Because I think the author maybe is a little stronger. I love the other stuff she's written in the Star Wars universe, Claudia Gray, and also it's already been set up. Yes, there's new characters in the second book, and it's a different story, like a side storyline, but the heavy lifting's already kind of been done, I think.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so that's a lot to say even before we get to spoilers about this book.
I would like the record to show that my jaw had dropped when Rico
Yes.
said he agreed with me and Laura, because that's probably never happened when it comes to Star Wars. I don't think Rico and I have ever
That is not
agreed.
true. I agree with
What
you.
what have we agreed on?
We have agreed that The Last Jedi isn't the best movie.
But we have very different opinions about why it's not the best movie.
Okay, we should do a whole separate Minnesota into Star Wars.
I know, we really can't.
I'm down
We really
for
can't
that.
get into that. Ooh, okay. Well, hold on, folks. Just kidding.
Wait.
We're
Let's
gonna
not get
steer
on that.
this. Let's steer this away from the book. No, but I mean, I just feel like we often don't, like, we might have like, oh yes, it's a bad XYZ, but our reasons for it tend to be very different just because we're different people. So
Sure.
I am just floored that you felt almost the exact same way. I was really identifying with what you were saying of like, I've read sci-fi books before. Like I said, I've read some Star Wars books before. It's never been this hard, in my opinion, and in, again, my like vague, distant memory, to absorb these characters and storylines like this. It can get a little confusing, but usually it's such a narrower scope. And I think that this book really did try to do a lot in like listening to the audiobook and seeing the book. which people, I don't know why I'm like holding up the book. People can't see it. It's not very big.
Use your words, Bella.
It's not even 400 pages. It is 380 pages. Like, that's not
It
a
feels
thick
like
book.
a longer book.
It does.
It felt like when I got to chapter 18, I was like, oh, we're almost done. And I was like, we are not almost done. I don't know I'm gonna do this.
I feel like a lot of the exposition just was not needed, and it seemed
No.
more like the author was geeking out over the technology that he was creating for the story. I don't know if you guys felt that way, but there were so many times when it went into detail about this machine or this ship and all of the different uses that it could be used, or all the different things it could be used for, and like, you know, just went into super detail. And that's why I was like, oh, maybe this is going to come in handy. They're going to use this for something later in the book.
Yeah.
No.
I like more indirect exposition. Like, I like it to be explored in the context of the story. So I don't like to be told, oh, the reason he could tell that somebody was there was because his antennas pick up the pheromones of the person hiding. And I was like, yeah, that just sounds weird to me. Like, it didn't feel organic to the story. Whereas like if it was something more like, you know, he sensed that the person was in the corner and he looks over, his antennas were right. There was a person there. Like, there was someone still on the ship. I don't know, like, just kind of more organically flowing into the narrative, rather than almost being an aside to the reader. Like, oh, I know you don't understand this, but his antennas can sense the pheromones of the person hiding. Like, okay. This is a lot. Just tell me where the person is. Like, I don't really
I'm
care.
going to stand up for my buddy Charles here and say that because it's the first book in a brand new series.
Yes.
And it's a Star Wars book. That
here's the conflict I'm talking about, folks.
Yeah, here we go.
This is the classic Bella Rico dynamic.
It's tough because on one hand he's writing a sci-fi novel, right?
Sci-fi's hard.
So you just have to write a sci-fi novel. Great. You have to include enough information for people who maybe don't know what Star Wars is, right? So when you say a Jedi,
what rock are they living under that they don't know what Star Wars is and they've picked up this book? Let's be real. Know your audience.
I'm sure someone out there exists where they
Laura's
don't know
on my
what Star Wars
side, you
is,
guys.
and they picked
Laura's
up this
over
book.
here like, she's got a point.
I'm just saying.
If you don't know, Star Wars is not going to start with this book.
You're not going to pick this up and be like, let me.
It's a brand new thing that's not connected to anything else. Laura, okay, you own a freaking comic book store. You should know this better than anybody. There's a lot of people who want to get into comic books, but where do I start with Spider-Man? I've never read a Spider-Man comic. Which Spider-Man comic should I read? There's 70 plus years of Spider-Man comics.
That's true.
Like, how do I jump in? You know what's an actual perfect start? Like, let's connect this to Star Wars. What's a perfect starting point for a Star Wars novel? How about this one? It's brand new.
But how do they know Spider-Man?
But because you just know it. It's in the zeitgeist. Like, it just exists.
That's what I'm saying.
But
Star Wars is in the zeitgeist.
But you don't need to know everything. The point I'm trying to say is
what you're trying to say is the first book in this series.
I'm gonna fight you on this.
The one that's starting it off.
Get your lightsaber. Yes. Meet me outside.
Yes, there's a lot that he's got a lot of pressure, a lot of information that he's probably trying to share with us. Yeah. So maybe a lot of the exposition we learned didn't help out with the story in this book, but maybe it'll help out in the later books.
Yes,
Laura's the nice one, you guys. And I would like to say that my comment about exposition being indirect versus direct and subtle and all that and like interwoven in the narrative, I will bring that up in every book that I read. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. And as now an English teacher and someone who's taken writing classes, it's always like the first thing is like, don't tell, show. Like, show me what you're talking about. And if you can, right? Like, yeah, the pheromone thing is a bad example because, like, how do I show pheromones in a book? Like, the person's not going to know. But there are creative ways to, like, dig into these things. So I will always say that, Rico.
If you like good, well-written exposition, you should read The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. It was our second episode, I think, with Emma Skies.
I was gonna say that sounds really
Yeah.
familiar. Okay.
That one, we
That's
actually
fine.
talk about it in the episode too, the exposition is so amazing, like you don't even realize that you're reading
Oh,
exposition.
that sounds beautiful.
It's a totally different book, though. It's a totally
It is a
different
totally
story.
different book. It is a
It's
space story,
but
it's a totally different book.
different. I mean, Star Wars is all politics and planets and battles, whereas Becky Chambers is just people on a ship.
But there's a lot of cultures and stuff that you learn about. Just add it to your TBR. It's okay.
It's on my TBR. Don't you worry.
Let's move forward. Let's jump into hyperspace and move forward. Spoilers. And yeah, because we need to keep this conversation going. Because one of us is turning to the dark side by the end of this episode, and
I'm already on the dark side.
I don't want to say names, but
I'm already there. Look at.
Okay, so spoilers. Again, spoiler warning. We're going to be talking into detail about a lot of this book. So if you haven't read it and you want to read it, just know that, or tread ahead. I don't know. I don't know your life. Do you? So the book starts off with the Legacy Run, which is a cargo and passenger ship. It's speeding through hyperspace, and while attempting to avoid a collision with an unexpected obstacle, shatters into many pieces. The debris from the large vessel begins to emerge from hyperspace at different locations and points in times across the galaxy, causing chaos in shipping routes and disastrous loss of life where the pieces impact occupied planets.
Some of the debris is actually also contains people from the ship who are still alive. Mm-hmm. So that was like an additional disaster that they had to rectify also.
Correct. Now, for me, this was a really big introduction to the Star Wars universe for me. At least I haven't come across it, where what is hyperspace? Like, I don't think it's ever really been discussed in the films at all. It's you go into hyperspace and you show up at another planet. Mm-hmm. And this, for me, was the first book that really discussed what is hyperspace. And there's a quote in there that I really like that explains that it's not like real space. Once a ship or anything else enters it, there's no way to encounter anything. You're in a bubble of space-time that nothing else can interact with, because each lane is, as far as we can tell, its own distinct plane of existence. This entire time, I always assumed hyperspace was just like light speed. Basically.
That's what I thought too.
You go really quickly, which is always kind of bugged me. Is like, how does time not pass? Like, if you follow like faster than light travel in any sci-fi novel, it'll talk about the dilation of time or the difference of time where you are traveling in less time than someone stationary. That's not a thing in the Star Wars universe, and this is why, because it's freaking space-time. It warps time, which blew my mind. I thought that was such a big concept introduced into Star Wars, and I just wanted to get your take on it. What do you think about that?
I thought that was pretty cool, actually. I forgot about that again because it feels like forever in the book that we talked about it. But no, I did really appreciate them getting into like what is hyperspace and the fact that it is so unknown at this point. Because this is before the prequels. So I actually did really appreciate that. Like that we did kind of back up and teach me something new about Star Wars that I didn't know. And it's interesting to hear that you didn't know that because you read a lot more Star Wars novels and graphic novels. So
maybe it was introduced in one I just haven't read. I mean, there's so many I still haven't read.
No, I mean, I do feel like that was a conversation, especially with like either Last Jedi or Rise of Skywalker, where they are tracking people in hyperspace. And there was a lot of like, wait, how are you tracking people in hyperspace? Like this, why is this a thing now? Like, we don't even know what hyperspace is. And now this makes a lot more, like this helps kind of explain, I'm not a physicist. I don't really care about the science, but this helps me make more sense of it. I'm not one of those people that's like, actually, like, I don't know. I don't care.
It's Star Wars.
As long as the story makes sense and I can follow it. So that part I followed and I really did enjoy that.
Okay, so we're introduced to our first Jedi in the book, Avar Kriss. She attempts to aid the citizens of the Hetzal system to escape disaster. So all these Jedi gather together to use the Force to reroute a piece of the Legacy Run containing dangerous gas away from impacting a sun, which would have caused a supernova explosion. So then Republic Chancellor closes the hyperspace lanes, and with the opening ceremonies of the newly completed Starlight Beacon, which, if you're familiar with Star Wars or not, it's divided into different rims. You got the outer rim, which is like the furthest planets away, which is kind of like the Wild Wild West. So they wanted to build a beacon, a station out there to represent the Republic. So you had the Starlight Beacon being built, and it's going to be the opening ceremony is only a few weeks away. She tasked the Jedi with discovering the cause of the emergences and finding a way to predict the next events. As they search the galaxy for answers, the pirate group known as the Nihil seek to take advantage of the closed hyperspace lanes. So here we go, the introduction of our bad guys for this new phase, which are space pirates. How did we feel overall about the Nihil and their introduction?
It felt like they were just a bunch of pirate ships. I was not that interested in them too much. I thought it was kind of interesting what they were doing and how they function, because I guess technically they're all one group, but then there are also three within that. So there's like a lot of politics about it too. But I actually was not very interested in them until I started listening to the audiobook, because the narrator made the leader sound a lot more interesting. The I sounded more interesting. I liked the voice that he used.
I'm actually really glad that you both listened to at least some of the audiobook, because I love Star Wars audiobooks for the sound effects and for the music, because they really are like full audio production, like audio dramas, which really bring the stories to life. I thought you both were just going to read it. I'm like, oh, you guys are going to miss out, but you know how good they are. So the recommendation is listen to the audiobook if you can.
Yeah, highly recommend that. If you are really wanting to commit to this book and you want to read it, please listen to the audiobook. It's going to be much better.
So the leader of the Nihil has devised a way to predict the path of the next emergence and manipulates the Nihil leaders into a scheme to blackmail the planets who will soon be destroyed by the debris. Later in the book, we find out that Marchion Ro, the leader, he confesses to one of the Jedi he captured that the entire accident with the hyperspace and the Legacy Run and the emergences was all orchestrated by him. But I don't know how he is able to predict where out of hyperspace they're going to emerge.
It's Maurice and Teka is the secret weapon. And this is, again, where I'm very confused. There was a lot introduced in this book, and I definitely missed that. But she is a Force-sensitive human female hyperspace prospector and member of the Teka clan. And somehow she's still alive. She's very old. And some of the Jedi know about her. Marlowe and Velis know about her. I'm so confused.
I don't remember specifically, but I think it was he used her and her knowledge or whatever, her something to do with her paths or something to figure it out.
Yeah, she's like comatose, and I'm very confused about like how this all works, but she's somehow comatose and like in a chamber on his ship and telling him where they're gonna come out.
So she's just like an oracle, kind of.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember reading or listening to it, but I think I kind of checked out for a little bit. Anyhow, so as space pirates do, they begin to fight with each other, and greed overtakes them. One of them reveals his presence to the Republic during a failed blackmail attempt, and the Nihil are confronted in space by Republic and Jedi fighters. Marchion Ro, who is the Eye of the Nihil, the de facto leader, uses the infighting to seize full control of the organization. He then sends the Nihil forces to the planet Elphrona to kidnap a wealthy family. Jedi Master Loden Greatstorm and his Padawan Baal Zedifar foil the attempt, but Loden is captured by the Nihil. Marchion Ro, this, like I mentioned, this is when he confesses to Greatstorm that he orchestrated the entire thing. He orchestrated the hyperspace accident, the emergencies, and the Jedi's rescue of the family in order to create chaos, which led to his new control of the Nihil, as well as to capture a Jedi. And then he has more plans for the Jedi and the Nihil that have yet to be revealed. This, for me, in the book, this is where I started caring.
Same.
Once he started revealing the bigger plans, and that we started finding out that there's more to his backstory that we don't know yet.
Mm-hmm.
That he's somehow connected to the Jedi, maybe, or that there's more to him. And this is where it's like, oh, damn, okay, I guess I'm going to continue reading because I want to know now. Now you have my interest.
Well, there's even a line somewhere like he wasn't worried about taking his mask off because nobody's going to recognize who he was or something like that. Implying there's a lot more history to him, his family, his father. He mentions his father a lot. And I just thought he was definitely more interesting to me because through the whole book, it just seemed like he was this really quiet, soft-spoken guy who's just kind of like doing whatever, telling these guys where to go. And then just slowly through the book, you start seeing he's actually a cruel person, and you start seeing that he's actually got something going on that you just don't quite get until that end where he explains it. I feel like he is the character that this book is definitely building up to. Like, the book has all these different characters, but I felt like when I got towards the end, I felt like Marchion Ro is the main character.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Who did you think was the main character, Bella?
I don't really know.
Because there wasn't one. That's why. That's the answer.
That's why I'm like, that's
there was
interesting.
10.
Exactly. I was like, I didn't take that away, but I don't think you're wrong. I guess, God, I mean, Star Wars. There's a lot of main characters, but who is the protagonist, right? Like in the prequels, the sequels, and the original trilogy, like the Skywalker family is like the group of protagonists you really care about. And I was trying to figure that out in this book, who might be leading into that, because we're before the Skywalkers really become part of the Star Wars narrative at this point. I was wondering if Bell, the Padawan, if he somehow is really important later on, but I'm just or his master. I don't know. I'm really lost in general, but that's why I was like, interesting. That's a perspective I did not have, but I was very lost. So I don't think you're wrong at all. I don't know what the right answer is, though.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, like, I don't feel like it's written with a specific protagonist.
I feel like this whole book was supposed, I think the book is the exposition for the series. Maybe. Like, I'm kind of wondering if this is like the forward of what the series is going to be. Like, if this is just giving you the word vomit of everything that you need to know. Because if book 2 is so different, that kind of tells me this was meant to be almost like an encyclopedia or a history book of what's to come and like set it up for you. But I don't know.
In Star Wars language, this book is the opening crawl.
Yeah. Yes.
Good way to
That's a
put it.
great way of putting it. Yes.
Right? They flesh out the entire opening crawl into a full book, so you know everything you need to know, which is a lot. But,
Which is a lot, and a lot of different perspectives telling the same
Yeah.
story. Like the whole intro part of the transport ship that eventually explodes, right? You get all the different perspectives of it happening with like the people on the planet, the people on the ship, the captain, the techs who are tracking it and are like, "Huh, something's about to hit. We should warn everyone." And then they die. You're like, okay, I feel like that could have
that
been like,
prologue with the legacy run, I actually really liked the prologue.
I actually thought that was really good.
Yeah.
Again, this is where I feel like Star Wars, if he had done more of that, one character that like we followed, or three characters that we followed, but there was maybe that's
Everywhere.
really what happened, but I just got very confused reading this, and normally I can keep stuff like that straight. So I don't know.
So we've talked a lot about stuff we didn't really like or that was confusing, but what did we enjoy? Like, was there anything that you really enjoyed about this? Did it do anything correctly for you, especially in terms of Star Wars?
I really enjoyed the description of the Force and how it looks different for everybody.
Mhm.
That was pretty cool.
I really appreciated, you know, in a positive turn of events, the exposition on everyone's different view of the Force.
What a twist!
What a twist that I actually liked the overindulgence of exposition in this. But I did like that, and I actually appreciated how this author wrote with everyone's unique race and creed in mind, that like to somebody from an ocean planet, the Force feels like an ocean, right? That like they can feel the ripples and the waves from other people, versus like somebody who's more attuned to sound hears it as a song. And so I really appreciated that it was like they're all different, but they're all correct, because it's all their unique view of the Force, but they're all understanding it the same way in the end. Like, and that's really what matters, right? It's like we don't all need to see eye to eye, but as long as we all kind of agree on the common mission, that's what's important. And it allows them to work together and understand each other. So I know I really appreciated that. I thought it was beautifully written. I think that he had an idea, again, like Laura was saying, like he really geeked out on it, and I appreciated that level of interest. I feel like that's something we don't hear about in the movies. Don't know about the other books or graphic novels, but that felt new to me, and I really enjoyed it.
I'm so glad you brought up the Jedi who experiences the Force as music,
Mhm.
because
That was beautiful.
it reminded me of a Green Lantern character. I'm gonna get real geeky here for a second, so bear with me.
Nerd.
So, for those of you who don't know, the Green Lantern Corps in DC Comics
Anything.
they can manipulate light. They can make things out of light. Well, there was a member that was blind. Their entire species is blind. So, how do you use that power if you don't have any context of what sight, what color is? So, for this Green Lantern Corps member, his power was sound based. He would
That's cool.
make things out of sound instead.
That's awesome.
Which that was awesome, like really cool. And it reminded me of that. So anyhow, that's it. Geeky moment over.
Not for long.
For
This
now.
is a Star Wars episode.
For
Come
now,
on.
yeah. What about you, Laura? Was there anything that you really enjoyed or did right by you?
It's kind of hard to say specifically. I think overall I like the story of the book. I just feel like there's too much extra stuff in it that I didn't necessarily need. And so it's really hard for me to pick out specific things that I really liked because there was just so much going on. I think overall I really liked just like the opening itself. The whole thing having to do with trying to save all these people and the planets and whatnot. I thought that was really cool. Again though, I still feel like there was a lot of people that I couldn't keep track of. But I was trying to picture it in my head. I feel like if that had been something that I was watching on TV, like a movie or like, animation or something, it would have been super exciting and just fascinating to kind of like see how they're doing all this different stuff. I will say I do like some of the ways that they had to like think out of the box for trying to save people in the beginning.
Oh.
So like they had to work with the Jedi to try and slow down like one of the debris or whatever with people in it, and they had to like use clamps or something at the same time to grab onto it to slow it down even more and like save the people in there and all this stuff. I thought that was really cool. I don't know if we've ever seen anyone going between ships in space without a connection. I don't know my terms here.
Are you not? I mean, do you not remember Princess Leia?
Besides Princess Leia, I'm
The
not
Last
counting
Jedi?
that. Not
You mean
counting
on
that.
purpose? You mean on purpose?
On purpose, going between one ship to another in space.
But we are talking about force-sensitive people, so.
I'm just saying, like,
beings.
that was kind of cool because we've not really seen that where they're intentionally like, I'm gonna have to jump through space. Got to make sure I'm close enough. It's gonna be a few seconds, whatever, and like, that's not something that I've seen. I don't know if it's in any other books or whatever, but that stood out to me as different.
I feel like we don't see it because it's not possible. They would freeze, right? Like that's where I do care about the science because I'm like, that's something.
I honestly don't know. I thought that was the case, but then I also read somewhere that is actually accurate. The body can last a certain number of seconds.
You can. I think it was like 14 seconds that you can last.
That's very short.
Yeah.
But,
all right, I'm going to go back and record The Last Jedi and record that scene. Because I think it was more than 14 seconds.
Okay, but again, if you're force sensitive, then
she's a Skywalker.
Get out of here.
Anyway, to your point, Lori, I agree. For a story that takes place in space, there's actually very little about what happens in space. Like there's very little like transporting people in between ships. Like you get that stuff in like movies like Gravity or any other like Earth-based space sci-fi. There's a lot of I have to go outside the ship and repair something. I have to do this. But there's none of that in Star Wars. No. It's just we're on a planet or we're in a spaceship. Space is just what we're going through.
Yep.
So yeah, that's a good point.
So I just thought that was cool because it's something a little bit like you just said, like it's something more that like we can understand and more like what we do or would do or whatever, more along with our kind of technology or something.
Was there anything else glaring that you did not like in this book that's worth noting? Because I have one big thing.
Then you go first.
You go.
It's not a big thing, but it's a big thing to me.
Yeah.
There is no sassy droid. There is no like Star Wars they're known for the droids. Every era has really cool droids. Every film has really cool droids.
I was going to say every movie has a droid. Yeah.
We get K2SO in Rogue One. We get Leet in Solo Movie. We get BB-8 and the sequel, including some of the other little guys. We get the cool little droid in the video game, the Jedi Fallen Order. Cal Kestis has this little anyhow, but there's no droid in this. There's droids,
they had droids, yeah, but no partnership. Yeah. And I wondered if we were gonna get like an R1D1 or something reference in this.
R2's grandfather,
exactly, like the first astromech droid or something. Yeah, I don't know.
Were they just droids? Like, did they even have personalities though?
There was one that talks to him and he is like, I can't translate binary, but I'm sure it was something like,
that's right.
Like, oh, thanks for leaving me behind or whatever. Cause it's when he leaves the droid behind on one of the many ships. I don't know. You guys, I also noticed that we are not using character names or like.
There's too many characters.
There's too many.
What are you talking about? I can name every single character in this book.
Fuck you, Rico. No, you cannot.
I can name
Get out of here.
3 characters in this book.
It's not even funny. I had to look up like on Wikipedia like all of the characters because I cannot remember them.
We got Loden Greatstorm. We got Bel
Great Storm, yeah.
Zettifar. We got Avar Chris, Martian Rowe. We got the Wookiee Jedi, whose name I'm not remembering.
Uriaga.
I guess the thing that I have an issue with is the names are either like really generic space names or like Great Storm, which is a really cheesy name. I don't know how you guys felt about that.
Oh, because
but-
Skywalker. Yeah. Star Killer.
Okay, look, I know that there was
Dark
you
Lighter.
know. Okay,
I'm just
know
proud that
you
most of the
were-
names I was pronouncing correctly before I listened to the audiobook.
Yeah, same. I mean, Star Wars, I feel like there is a pretty good linguistical knowledge if you've watched the movies, right? Like they do kind of they create their own language and we can usually follow along, which I appreciated that he made it easy for us, but I didn't really like the names. It was hard to keep track of them.
One thing that made me laugh, I love in Star Wars that we have a lot of these names that are really difficult or really grandiose, right?
Yeah.
Storm, blah, blah, blah. And there's always at least one character who's like, oh, yeah, my name's Erica.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird.
That's it? Just Erica?
I was like, what?
Or you at least spelled it?
Was
like
that a placeholder? Did they forget to change that?
I mean, you get a Luke, but it's just funny because it's like, yeah, there's always these weird names. What's up? My name's Erica. Which, speaking of, Bella, you brought up the expanded universe that isn't canon. Han and Leia's original kids. One of the twins was named Jason. I'm like, Jason? Really? I mean, I know my name's Jason, but I'm going to be the first one to say it's not a very Star Warsy name.
You know you're a product of the 80s, and so was that
very
kid.
True. Jason.
So Jason was like an iconic 80s name. Let's be real.
Jason.
Iconic in the way that everyone was named Jason. Quintessential 80s child name.
You will get no argument from me.
I know. You have the coolest last name, Rico, but your parents had to go with
Jason.
Jason.
That saves it.
Yeah. Man. Just missed opportunity. Like Muy. You could have been Muy Rico.
What?
My middle name. Okay, so let's get to how we'd rate this book, although I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this. Currently on Goodreads, this book is rated 3.93 out of over 16K ratings, which on Goodreads, a high 3, I would say, is average. So that brings us to a brand new segment of the show. Is this book shit? Or is it the shit?
Can we keep the sound effects for all the episodes? I like Star Wars.
Until we get sued. Until someone tells Disney.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so we're getting rid of the star systems. No 5 stars. We're keeping it pretty simple. Just, did you like this book? Yes or no? Who wants to go first?
I think they already know what we're going to rate it.
Yeah, I know. But officially, you got to say it.
I feel really bad, but I feel like I'm the only one who's going to say it. This is shit.
Okay, so we got shit from Bella. Laura, you're doing a thumbs down that no one can see.
Shit.
So that's a shit from you. And I'm going to say out of the two, I'm going to say it's shit as well.
Wow.
This pains me, Rico. This binary system of rating really pains me. But this one, I'm totally fine saying shit. Sorry to the author.
Just like Tatooine has binary stars.
I think we need an abridged version of this book.
It started off really strong. I was captivated by the first few chapters, and then I'm not really sure exactly what happened, but things just kind of got real messy and complicated.
Yeah.
And
Jason, if you're going to continue reading this series, then maybe we can just like meet up when you finish a book.
Yeah, can you just
summarize it for
give
us?
me the
Sure.
podcast?
Sure. Yeah, we could do a separate, Jason Star Wars corner. And just tell you about the next book.
I can't believe we all voted that.
Well,
For once, we're all in agreement.
yeah.
I don't think. Have we had a book before where we all voted it wasn't good?
Not with me.
I don't think we have.
Okay. I know. Okay. So I know. I just said we're changing the way we're rating stuff, but just to contextualize, where in the star rating would you put this?
2.
2 stars. Laura?
I would probably say 3.
Yeah, I would say it's probably around the 3. And so to answer your question, I think in the past we've all rated books around the 3 area, which is average. So I don't know. I think this might be the first book where we say it's not good, although it's probably just average.
There's times though when we would say, well, I would rate it 3, but if you like XYZ, then I recommend it.
Yeah.
Whereas with this one, if we were to say it in that way, I would say I give it a 3, but I don't recommend it. Which is also why I say it's shit. Because
yeah, I think maybe we make that more clear.
It's just there's just so much going on in this book that I would not want to read it again. So I would not recommend it.
Yeah. I wouldn't recommend it to just an average person.
I'd recommend this to a Rico who is
me.
obsessed with reading, more like skimming, because I know he doesn't read.
How dare you?
You've admitted, sir.
How dare you?
You've admitted. I would recommend it to someone who is a true Star Wars fanatic.
Yeah.
Who wants to get through this series. And you need to start with this one. It gives you all the exposition that the other books now do not need to do. Because it's all in the 380 pages of this book. And that's why you should read it, is if you are going to continue the series. If you are looking to start a Star Wars book, I would not start with this one. I would ask Rico for a recommendation.
Oh, there's so many other ones that are way better than this one.
Yeah. I think that this is an adequate expository intro novel for this series.
Jason,
and
how
you
far...
You can read it if you want to read that.
How far along are you in the second book?
Just over 40% in.
Okay. When you finish it,
yeah,
I want to know what you think. Like, no spoilers. And you can let us know if you think it would be a good book to read, like better than this one. And is it okay for people who didn't read the first book to just jump into the second book? Don't tell me now. Let's wait until you read it.
But I can already answer that. I
just want to learn more about Marchion Ro. So when you get through the books,
okay, I will tell you
just
that.
get back to me on that, because I want to know more about him.
When Lucasfilms makes an animated series, I will be the first to read it or watch it.
Well, they're not making an animated series, but they are making a live action series set during the High Republic era.
Okay, see, I'll watch that.
Which one is that?
The Acolyte.
Okay. Interesting.
I don't know where it fits in the storyline, but it's set during this era, so who knows?
You never know.
Okay, anyhow, we've talked enough about this book. It's a bummer we didn't like it more because we're all big Star Wars fans, but what can you do? What are you both reading next?
Well, I already finished Malice, so I'm reading Misrule for our episode next week.
Next week. The episode comes out next week.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about that book. It's 180. I actually read that one instead of reading this one on time. I was like, oh, I need a break. It's getting boring. And then I finished.
Wow.
Malice. And hence why I requested an extra 2 days. Because I read the other book. I started with this one because I knew that was going to happen. And it did not captivate me. And I finished the other one. But I have not read Misrule yet. So you're welcome. I held back. I attempted to read this one. And I still didn't finish it.
What about you, Laura? What's next for you?
I am going back and forth. I'm looking at my bookshelf right now.
I know. They can't see it, but we can.
She's like, what is that next? After I finish my current one, I'm going back and forth between The Martian by Andy Weir or Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I know, Jason, you recommend both of those. So I know it'll be one of those. I'm just not quite sure yet.
Okay.
Rico, what's up? What's up in your
I'm reading more Star Wars novels. I'm on the
soon to
second book.
skim list?
I'm on the second book, and I'm going to read the next 3 in the series. I think there's 4 more.
Have you read Malice and Misrule, Rico?
No, but those are coming up next too. Okay, to be fair, here's what's next. I'm finishing this Star Wars book. I'm going to read a couple of the High Republic comic books because I can get through like a few of those in one day, and then I'm going to read Malice and Misrule for our episode next week, where we're going to be talking with the author Heather Walter. So definitely come back next week for that. That's going to be really exciting. We're going to have Emma Skies on the episode. We're going to be chatting, asking the author a bunch of questions. Should be a good time. Super excited about that, actually.
So cool.
Yeah, I'm excited to meet Emma. I haven't met her, so that'll be exciting.
Yeah. And you two, these books are not usually my normal type of books, but this is like right up both your alleys. So I'm really more excited to see you two talk to the author because you'll have the right questions. I will not.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's good. It's good.
Yeah. And then also, since we're talking about upcoming episodes, I might as well mention we do have another episode coming out at the end of this month. Speaking of Emma again, it's going to be our very first After Dark episode where Laura, Emma, and I read Desperate Measures by Katie Robert, which was a dark romance reimagining of Jafar and Jasmine. Oh,
that was interesting.
I heard it got raunchy.
I mean, it's definitely an After Dark episode.
Oh yeah, that's definitely.
I'm excited to hear the episode. Yeah.
We were drinking on the episode because we needed it.
I'm excited to listen to this episode so I know what I'm in for the next time I'm on After Dark.
Yeah.
Because me and Laura split our duties. I'm taking Malice and Misrule, which I would say is a very I was expecting more graphic romance, and I will say it's definitely a softer tone than what you guys described for your After Dark episode. So I am very scared for After Dark, but I'm excited to listen to it.
I don't think any part of Desperate Measure can be described as soft. And yes, I mean
you mean that on every level.
On every level.
The reason it's called a dark romance.
I'm gonna need Emma to really explain that for me when we meet, because I'm gonna need some more prefacing. I don't, as a former Catholic child, I don't know if I'm ready to talk like that on live audio. But again, maybe that's where alcohol gets involved.
Yep.
So I'm really curious to see how y'all handled that.
Well, listeners, if you're curious too, like I said, that episode comes at the end of this month. And so if you've read Star Wars Light of the Jedi and have thoughts, want to agree with us, disagree with us, tell us what you liked, didn't like, please, by all means, let us know your thoughts on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok now. So please give us your thoughts. We'd be happy to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much it for this episode. Thanks to you, Bella, for joining us full time and being here for our season 2 premiere. Laura, thanks as always talking to me about these books.
Of course.
As they say, first is the worst, second is the best.
I realized I probably should have started with Laura because I was like, thanks, Bella. And yeah, Laura, you're here too, I guess. You always are, so
unappreciated.
So this is going to be our best season yet, but then third season is going to be the treasure chest, We're just going to really start raking in that dough.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that more.
Yeah, we have a lot of good books before third season. We have a lot of good
books this year. I'm excited.
So stick around. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. And until next time, may the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be with y'all.
Houdini!
Houdini!
Shit We've Read is hosted by Laura Benson, Jason Rico, and Bello Romero, with music by Joshua Chilton and editing by Jason Rico.
To join the discussion on this and all other books we've read, find us at Shit We've Read on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok.
For more information about us or to request transcripts, please visit shitwe'veread.com.
This podcast is part of the Bilo Network. Visit bilonetwork.com for more great geeky podcasts.
Thanks so much for listening.